Mario Draghi is preparing for the final act in his dramatic tenure as European Central Bank president. The ECB is meeting on Thursday to discuss how and when it should bring large-scale bond purchases to an end, is one of the most keenly anticipated by investors and economists since early 2015, when the program was unveiled. The decision will be announced at 1:45 p.m. in Frankfurt, and Draghi will speak 45 minutes later. Click here to see Draghi's press conference on Live Go. It's something of a crossroads for the ECB chief, who faced down the sovereign debt crisis and near deflation in the euro area, but may end his term in October 2019 without reaching the central bank's inflation goal or raising interest rates. The Governing Council looks likely to cut monthly asset purchases from €60 billion, $71 billion, and stretch them out for as long as capacity allows, while it waits for consumer price growth to pick up. The president won't want to repeat the mistake of his predecessor Jean-Claude Trichet, who raised interest rates twice in his final months in charge in 2011, only for Draghi to reverse the hikes shortly after taking office. The central banks of Sweden and Norway on Thursday both kept rates unchanged, with the Riksbank reiterating its intention to wait until the middle of 2018 before a hike. Economists in a Bloomberg survey foresee a 9-month extension of quantitative easing at around €30 billion a month, starting in January. There are a range of potential outcomes, though, with some officials pushing for key to end sooner. Bloomberg economists expect a 6-month extension at €40 billion. Most commentators expect the ECB to keep its pledge to extend the program further if needed. The euro was unchanged at $1.1813 at 10:59 a.m. Frankfurt time. The central bank is also considering highlighting a related measure, the reinvestment of the proceeds of bond holdings as they mature. That additional spending, which will average about €15 billion a month in 2018 and could run for years, could work as a shock absorber amid any market concerns about the pullback in stimulus. Economists don't expect any change to the forward guidance that interest rates will remain unchanged until well past the end of net asset purchases. They foresee a rate hike, which would be the first under Draghi's presidency, only in the first half of 2019 at the earliest. A critical factor for the ECB is the amount of debt still available under its own rules. Some officials see room for little more than €200 billion of purchases in 2018, which would bring total holdings to around €2.5 trillion. While central banks in some smaller countries are already running into shortages, the most prominent concern is Germany. It accounts for the biggest share of key, yet the government's budget surplus means the nation's pool of debt is shrinking. Policymakers will have to calibrate carefully how fast they scale down purchases. Too brusque an exit may jolt the euro and German bonds. Policymakers at the last two Governing Council meetings expressed concern that the single currency surge this year, up 12% against the dollar, could undermine the recovery by curbing inflation and damping exports. The good news, which Draghi can be expected to emphasize, is that the region's economy is on track for its fastest expansion in a decade and is probably capable of withstanding a moderate shock. Yet the ECB head repeatedly says that we aren't there yet on inflation, which was just 1.5% last month, and which the central bank predicts won't return to its goal of just under 2% before at least late 2019. What matters for the ECB is that inflation is self-sustained, rather than dependent on monetary stimulus or volatile elements such as oil and food, and there are nascent signs of improvement. Bloomberg's measure of supercore inflation, linked to spare capacity in the economy, has picked up. The key missing element might be wages, which are barely rising despite the relatively rapid decline in unemployment over the past 4 years. One possible explanation is that the standard measure is underestimating joblessness. The ECB has developed a broader measure including those who work less than they want, and it's almost double the official rate. Governing Council member Ewald Nowotny of Austria has gone so far as to call for higher pay deals. Recent public comments by governing council members suggest that their positions have been converging as the bond buying program nears an exit, and Draghi has said he expects to reach agreement on the bulk of the decisions at this meeting. Still, with 19 central bank governors and 6 executive board members, they could still stumble. If so, it's back to the drawing board at the final meeting of the year on December 14.